The Rams could trade up for this elite wide receiver. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, we are so close to 12,000 subscribers. Join the party, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and drop all your takes down below. What do you guys think about the Rams and adding another receiver, possibly trading up for a receiver, trying to go out there and get someone? So you know, all your Rams takes and any questions you have for our mailbag episodes, also drop those. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Locked On Rams, 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation, SI. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just finished his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. The People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, you got some Rams rumors over the weekend. We're going to talk about them possibly trading up for an elite impact receiver. Were they interested in Mike Williams? We're going to talk about the 2023 season, what we learned from Rams versus Seahawks week 1, all that and more. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, Travis, we're going to get these rumors in just a second, but first, your guy, Steve Avila, I do not know if you saw what he posted on his Instagram. Did you see this? He said, firm believer that Whataburger is better than In-N-Out.
Oh, come on.
So that's bold, okay? And look, he was born in Texas.
Yeah.
He was raised in Texas. He went to college in Texas. So, look, he's someone that he has every right to have the wrong opinion.
Look, yeah, the fact that he is a Texan is the thing that will let him off the hook here. Look, I am a born and bred Southern Californian. I am an In-N-Out stan like few others. I am here to rep the In-N-Out colors. That being said, I did live in Texas for a brief period of time. I spent about 2 years there, and I know how they feel about their Whataburger. They're all wrong. It has nothing to do with one being better, but I respect him staying true to where he's from and what he knows, and that his wrongness will be forever is his own problem, not ours. In-N-Out is better than Whataburger. Simply because here's the thing. Okay, now this is starting to bother me. Here's the biggest difference. In-N-Out is always hot and exactly what you ordered, right? When you go through the line and you go into the store, you get your burger, it's hot, it's ready to go. Whataburger is tepid. It's room temperature. It's been under the lamp. It's just not nearly the same thing. Never mind the fact that it's just not as good. It's never hot enough. So I could go on about this for the rest of the day, but In-N-Out forever. And as much as I love Steve Avila, he's wrong about this one.
Rare L for Steve Avila, and I'm with you 100%. My favorite thing about people that are anti-In-N-Out is when they start to list off why X burger place is better than In-N-Out, they bring up everything but the burger. They're like, oh, the fries aren't that good. Oh, the wait is too long, this and that. All I have to say about this is ask him again in 2 years. Ask him in 2 years. I think his answer changes, but we could obviously spend a whole show on this topic.
By the way, you know why the line's too long? Because everybody's waiting to get the best thing, right? You know where there's not lines? Where the things stink, where the things aren't as good. If it has a long line at In-N-Out, it's because everybody knows they're going to get exactly what they wanted. There you go.
Absolutely. So let's get into this rumor here, because there was a rumor over the weekend that the Rams had a meeting with Rome Udunze, the elite wide receiver out of Washington, and that's a fact. And now the question is he someone that could be a possible trade-up target? And that's the conversation today, because the Rams, we know their needs, right? Edge rusher, offensive line possibly, cornerback. But one thing I will say is had they drafted for need back in the day, they wouldn't have had Aaron Donald. They end up with Aaron Donald. He ends up being one of the best players in the history of the sport. So Rapport, he did list the Rams as a possible team that could be a trade-up candidate. And Udunze, if you look at his pro day, he had at the combine, he had a 4.45 in the 40, 1.52. second 10-yard split. He was explosive, 39-inch vertical, 10-foot and 4-inch broad jump. So he definitely put up the numbers. And kind of my take on this is, look, man, if the Rams really feel like him and Puka can be the future at that position and also help the current nucleus win with guys like Cooper Kupp and Demarcus Robinson, hey, if he's available and you really feel like he could be a star, I say why not?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch going on right here. Number one, I think that they're doing their due diligence in large part, too, to just make sure that in the event that stuff shakes loose a certain way and there's a path to maybe move up and take a player like that, that they've at least talked to the player, they know the player, and they have a decent idea of what he's about. So I think this is more let's cross every T and dot every I than it is necessarily that they're moving up. But that they did it means something more than nothing, right? I think that's number one. You've heard me say this. The everydayers will remember this. I'm a big believer in take the best player on the board. And if you think you can get a player like this, then you got to go do it, because all the things that you just talked about, Doug, at the combine, all of the incredible numbers, and that's great. I watched this guy play football a lot last year when guys were trying to stop him, when guys were trying to prevent him to do what he wanted to do, and there wasn't much success. He's a good football player. He's not an underwear Olympics champion. He's a good football player, which is very, very exciting. I think that's number two. And then lastly, this makes you at least kind of scratch the back of your head about Cooper Kupp, about his health, about what they think about him moving forward. Because when you look at what they have, you look at Puka, who's young and just getting started, coming off one of the great rookie seasons of all time. They just signed Demarcus Robinson. I think you have a pretty good idea of what he's going to bring to your team as far as consistency goes. That leaves Kupp. Kupp had a year that was good, not great. Kupp had a year where he was something other than the best version of himself. Was it injury related, or is it just time and age related? I think that's the question. Also, you never just need what you need, right? You always need more. You always need a backup. You always need depth. And if you can get your hands on a player of this quality, I think you need to be prepared to do it. And I think all of these things add up to at least them taking a meeting with Udunze.
No doubt about it. Ian Rapport also mentioned the Colts, the Jaguars, and Steelers as other teams that could possibly trade up for Udunze. This is someone who could be a top 10 pick. But as you mentioned, I watched a lot of Pac-12 too.
Yep.
And I'm glad, by the way, NCAA football, the video game's coming back. So that way UCLA can actually win a bowl game. I can actually simulate it. I'm so excited about that. But yeah, watch a lot of Pac-12 football. This guy is an absolute beast. 6'3", the catch radius. Yeah. If this guy was on Alabama or one of those SEC powerhouses, he'd be absolutely mentioned as a top 5. He'd be up there with Marvin Harrison Jr., right, as the best receiver in college football. So there's a little bit of that. And I think that what this organization has shown us is they're willing to roll the dice on high upside. It doesn't matter what position they're in. It also kind of gives me a glimpse into probably their free agency plan. They probably feel like, okay, we're going to be able to get an edge elsewhere. We're probably going to bring back Kevin Dotson. There's some other tackle options they want to go that way, or we talk about bringing back Alaric Jackson. So if you can address those positions of need elsewhere, then I say get the best possible player. And I think just in general, it feels like they want to add a receiver that can have an impact next season, not just a depth piece. I mean, clearly they want to add to that position, and they feel like it's not just for now, but it's also for the future. Yeah,
I think that's it. I think they feel like their window is open again, right? That they're kind of in a position that they were in 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, where if there's a good player, even if that player is a veteran player like a Mike Williams, even if that's a young player like a Rome Odunze, they're going to kick the tires on a lot of these different things. They are looking to get talent. They're looking to do it right now. If they can hit 2 birds with 1 stone and get talent and young, even better. But this is not a, hey, let's be good in 2029. This is a, let's be good in 2024 and make sure that we're ready to go, because the clock is still ticking. Now, it's not ticking super loud, but it is ticking on Stafford, on Donald. So let's make sure that you take your swings with those guys. And if you can get your hands on a talented young guy, a talented old guy, they need to be ready to go either way. And this is the last thing I'll say about that, Doug. I really do think they're going to trade that pick. I don't think that they're necessarily going to use that pick on the 19th player in the draft. I think you're going to hear the Rams have traded their pick to blank. I don't think they pick at 19.
I was just about to say something similar, and that number 19 is going to change. Either it's going up, it's going down, it's going for an established player. It's burning a hole in their pocket. They don't know what to do, but they're going to have to do something. But coming up next here on Locked On Rams, we're going to take a look at the opening game of last season, what we learned from it. Also, we're going to talk about some other receivers, too, they could draft. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, if you are a new customer, this is for you, because new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. How about that? $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bets. That's $150 you can go put on any other game, any other prop, any other team, any other player if your first bet wins. So, of course, you can bet on all your favorite NBA players, all of your favorite NBA teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just a little bit of, friendly advice. Maybe double-check that Laker bet before you want to put that down. That doesn't seem to be going in the right way. But here's how you do it. You go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON, and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to our everyday listeners out there. We appreciate you watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. And also, just a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. You can talk about the Locked On Lakers. LeBron 40K lost that game. Locked On Dodgers, who some people say we're Locked On Dodgers sometimes here, so it's all good. Hey, we love our LA teams, right?
They scored 8 runs a game in spring training, and they're not even using this. Anyway, yes, you can find Locked On Dodgers. They'll take care of you there.
Absolutely. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we are starting a new series today. We were going to go back and revisit every single game from the 2023 season and talk about what we learned from those games and how they apply to today, how it applies to their off season, and just kind of the overall takeaways and how much things have changed. And of course, we're starting with the opener where the Rams, they go into Seattle as the underdog, and they really dominate the Seahawks 30-13. And my first biggest takeaway going back on that game, Travis, is, you know what? This team is not going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
You know, it's funny. I thought the same thing. You know, that was coming into the season. You got to kind of put yourself back into the mindset of what it was like in camp, right? Camp was when we were out there and talking to the players and talking to the coaching staff. There was a lot of, yeah, we'll see. We think we're going to be all right, but we got a lot to prove. We got a lot of areas that we got to get better in, specifically the offensive line. There were questions about Matthew Stafford's health. There were questions about Cooper Kupp's health. So let's see what it looks like. But they go out there, and we can get into the individual performances, and I know we will here in a second. But at the end of the day, it was that team's not bad enough to get a top pick, because they put up 30 points, because Matthew Stafford looked great, because Puka kind of showed out for the very first time, and the offensive line was human. It worked. So that was one of those moments where you're like, okay, Sean McVay looked energized. There was just a whole bunch of information in that first game that made you say, okay, I don't know if they're going to be any good. They might not go and be good, but they're not going to be super bad. That was the first takeaway of the first week.
No doubt about it. And it felt like, okay, this team, they know they're underdogs, but they felt re-energized. The offensive line performed much better. Matthew Stafford's making off-platform throws. He's moving around the pocket. He's looking like Matthew Stafford once again. Now, the most memorable play for me, though, came towards the end of the first half there, just under 5 minutes there in the second quarter. And Aaron Donald, he's going up towards Geno Smith. And Geno Smith was all of us in that moment. Oh, my God. And he kind of gets rid of it. I mean, he was about to be sent to the upper room with Jesus there. And I think he was all of us, right? I'm not even mad at him for that reaction.
No, it was the most human reaction that I've ever heard a football player have in the moment, right? Because they really are superhuman. They are braver than we are. They're more courageous. They're willing to do things that regular human beings aren't do, to put themselves in a position to get legitimately banged around, and potentially worse than that. and you think, okay, they don't have fear the way you and I do. They don't have self-preservation, mode the way that you and I do. Wrong. If Aaron Donald comes running free right at your face, Geno Smith was, like you said, he was all of us with this, oh my God, and he got rid of it. It was funny, and I don't think anybody thought any less of Geno Smith because we would all do exactly the same thing in the same situation.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the big one too, Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, he planted his flag. He made an absolute statement saying, you know what? Look, a lot of hype of me during the preseason. I'm going to back that up in the first regular season game. And it turned out that he was here to stay. He was targeted 15 times. That was a game high. That was almost twice as much as any Rams receiver on the day. He had 10 catches for 119 yards. And none of these big explosive plays like some of the ones we saw later in the season. Longest one was 20 yards. But the one play where he managed to make that catch, keep his feet in bounds, I was like, okay, this is someone who's so talented. Considering he's got these 14-inch foot, 14 feet. He's just so graceful on the sidelines there, and he just basically made a massive statement that day.
He was great. He was terrific. And in retrospect, it was the beginning of arguably the greatest rookie wide receiving season in history. But I do want to kind of throw this in there. My takeaway was, that's a great game. Good job, Puka. Show me again. Was this just the guy went off because Kupp wasn't available? They had to throw it to somebody, and he had the day of his life. I would love to be the guy that said, I told you, but you were much more on it than I was. At the end of that day, it was like, yeah, that's a great day, but can I see him do it again? Because anybody can have a day. It's a question of whether you can have a season, a month, a career, and it was just one of the great days that we've seen. But I was skeptical, right? I hadn't seen it enough time. Turns out I was wrong to be skeptical, but I think after 1 week in the season saying, okay, that was cool, show me again. Because I remember friends saying, like, who is this guy? How do you say his name? All of these sort of things. And it was, just everybody hold on. Kupp wasn't there. We'll see what happens when Cooper Kupp comes back. And what happened when Cooper Kupp comes back is Puka Nacua was still the number one wide receiver.
Yeah, that absolutely was the consensus opinion. It was, okay, nice game, rookie. You filled in for Cooper Kupp. Sure. You're just trying to hold down the fort until he gets back. But that wasn't the case. He still was as productive and took his game to a whole nother level as the season progressed. But for my thing, I was like, okay, let's see what the scouts have to do with this. Let the scouts get to him. Let's see how they game plan for him. He still is productive. But I remember thinking, like, man, this guy's got like the physicality of like a big tight end or something. He catches everything. And you saw the energy too behind him. I kind of felt like, okay, this guy does have the potential to be special, but I did not see the best rookie receiving season ever. I'll tell you that much. I thought he was gonna have a breakout year and have like 800 yards, and he almost had double that. Now, another one, kind of a little bit on the negative note, if you want to look at it that way, is it really felt like the Tutu Atwell breakout season was on. He had his best game as an NFL player that day, had 6 catches for 119 yards, that 44-yard long. He was catching short passes. He was making contested throws over the middle on some crossers. But unfortunately, that was his best game of the season. It was really all downhill from there.
Yeah, this was one where being a little bit cautious was probably the right move. And look, I get it that I am not Tutu Atwell's biggest fan. I hope he plays great. I want the Rams to win. I want all their players to play as well as they possibly can. But I am just not a big believer in that type of player having long-term sustained success in the NFL. There are just not enough examples of guys that size and built quite like that are able to stand up to the rigors of an NFL season. There are a few. There's a Deshaun Jackson out there and one or two others, but we've seen it with Tutu. He just does not have the ability to go stand out there and get pounded the way that it is in that league. He had some nice games. He had a touchdown, and some big moments here and there, but that was the high watermark to be sure, and I think it probably will remain that way.
For sure. And we talked about the receivers, talking a little more about the receivers in a minute here. This is someone who had a lot riding on that season as far as carving out a role in the future, and everyone's excited about it, and unfortunately wasn't able to build on that. He did make the most of a lot of opportunities that he got, but fortunately later in the season, he was passed on the depth chart by Demarcus Robinson. But one of the biggest takeaways, I think, from that game that kind of gets hidden is the Cam Akers and Kyren Williams situation. Because Cam Akers, he got the start, had 22 carries in the game. His longest run was 12 yards. So he had 29 yards total. But Kyren Williams had a sneaky good game in his opportunities, 52 yards on 15 carries, had 2 touchdowns, and you could just see he had a different bounce with this offensive line. You could just tell, like, okay, this guy's different. And it kind of just made me think of, okay, Sean McVay's talking all about this guy and what he likes to see. And every time a reporter would ask him about Cam Akers, I can remember maybe 3 or 4 times that, yeah, don't forget about Kyren. I like Kyren too.
Yeah.
You know, so that is something to take away from me is listen very closely to Sean McVay. If he drops your name and you don't already have that role, you have a good chance to get it.
He doesn't lie. He doesn't throw praise around like that unless it's earned. He's talked about like that with Kupp, with Puka, with Kyren Williams. He doesn't do it all the time. So if he does it, we should probably listen to what he says. I'm glad you brought up McVay because I think for me, that was a big moment too. Again, let's go back to the beginning of the season. I know that right now everything feels great and wonderful for all the right reasons. Sean McVay nearly walked away from this team at the end of the previous season. There was a lot of question marks about whether or not he was going to continue in his role as head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, whether or not he needed to go take a break, whether he's going to go to TV, whether he just needed to kind of re-energize. And I think the smart money was on him walking away for a year. And the season ended, and he said, I need some time to think about this. And we're like, okay, he's gone. Who's going to fill in or who's going to be the next coach of the Rams? Well, fast forward about 10 days, and he's like, nope, I'm back. We needed to see what it looked like with him on the sidelines, and his energy and his enthusiasm and his passion for what he does was coming through loud and clear. This wasn't another, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through another 3, 4, 5, 10 win season, whatever it is. This was, I'm Sean McVay, fully present, ready to go, having the time of my life. And that, to me, was arguably the biggest part to take away from that season was, okay, Sean McVay's back. And if he's back, you got a really good chance.
Yeah, and it only took one game for me to feel like, okay, I feel so much better about Sean McVay and the Rams' future just after this one game. Just his demeanor, how into it he was, how re-energized he looked. But coming up next, our biggest takeaway, the number one thing we learned from week 1 that applies to the offseason, that's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Locked On Rams is sponsored by BetterHelp. So more time in your day. What if you said, you know what, here's an extra hour. Do with it whatever you want. We all think about what we would do if we had a little more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? And the best way to figure out what's important to you, what matters to you, therapy, right? It's a great way to do it. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's designed to be flexible. And of course, it is designed to be suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You will get matched with a licensed therapist. And of course, if it doesn't quite work that first time, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So learn to make time for what makes you happy, what's important to you with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for being Locked On Rams, your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. So we'll end on this one, Travis. The biggest takeaway for me, just looking back, was, oh, you know what? This Seahawks team, they thought they were going to be contenders.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to build off the overachieving season they had in 2022. And in 2023, they were going to make a run at the playoffs. They did have a solid year. They finished 9-8. They really had some big wins towards the end. But I think it's a lesson that just because you overachieve one season, you're not guaranteed any success in this league. You're only as good as your last win, your last roster build. And I think the Rams need to focus on that, knowing that, okay, look, 10-7 was great, making the playoffs was great, but it's going to mean nothing unless we continue to build on and develop this roster heading into the 2024 season.
It might be my single favorite thing about this league, the NFL. What you did last year means nothing. That they like in baseball and basketball, if you were good the year before, it's probably pretty likely you're going to be good the next year. If you were bad the year before, it's probably pretty likely that you're going to be bad again. In football, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Look, we'll use 2 teams right here. There were 2 teams that I think if you would ask most people, are the Buccaneers going to be bad? Oh, hell yeah, they're going to be bad. They won their division. Are the Rams going to be bad? Yeah, the Rams 5-12. They didn't sign anybody. They have a bunch of young players. They drafted, 900 guys. They're going to win 4 or 5 games. They won 10 and were probably one of the more dangerous teams going in. Who was a team that was going to be awesome all year long? Philadelphia. Well, what happened to them at the end? They completely came unglued. No one knows anything year to year. And I think you got a good glimpse of that in week 1, where all of a sudden it's like, wow, the Rams look a lot better. Wow, the Seahawks don't look like what we thought they might have been a year ago. And then lastly, D-Mac, I'll throw this in there too. Matchups matter in the NFL. There are some teams that you just match up really well with. The Rams match up really well with the Seattle Seahawks. They match up really poorly with the San Francisco 49ers. Matchups matter a great deal in this league.
100%. I could not agree with you more when it comes to the NFL. You can try to have, that's why I want these prediction shows and these preview magazines. I read them all. Trust me, I do. But you just have to throw them all out of the window, because the NFL, with attrition and guys going year to year, a lot of roster player mobility, you just never know until these games are played. And that was evidence in week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. That really was the surprise win, one of the surprise wins in week 1, because people talk about the Rams as a 5-win team, going for Caleb Williams in the top pick, and you had the tanking talk and all that silliness there. So, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that one. I think, hey, it was great what happened in 2023, but 2024 expectations are higher. The bar has been raised. Let's go out there, have another Super Bowl run. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.